What's up, guys, and welcome back to Spoken Truth. And we're diving into the NBA draft right now. It's a given that Wemby is the presumptive number one overall pick. We're going to talk briefly about him. There's been a lot that's put on these young man's shoulders, and he seems that he can handle it. I just want to know, what are your guys' expectations year one of Wemby?
To play NBA basketball. I don't really expect much else past that. I will say when Victor Wembanyama is probably the first prospect I've ever scouted where I've completely given up on trying to find a player comp for him. It doesn't really
Mhm.
exist. You ain't never seen no shit like this before. I ain't never seen no shit like this before. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know why people get surprised when he dunk. He's 7'5". Like it's
It,
like, why are you surprised that he could dunk all of a sudden? Like,
I think
he's not even
it's
spectacular.
everything
Like
else though, right?
the dude
yeah,
barely jumps.
I
He
mean,
barely,
but we don't see people shoot step back threes, miss a step back three, and then get a put back dunk
yeah,
off a step back three without the
yeah,
ball. That's not
yeah,
normal. Like a couple games ago, I saw him tag the roller on a pick and roll, and then steal the throwback pass. That's not that's not supposed to happen. That's not
yeah,
supposed to happen. That shit is ridiculous.
yeah,
He covers so much ground, it's unreal. Like this is not. I guess to answer your question more specifically, Danny, I'm just looking for like flashes of elite basketball, and of high level basketball. I think that's all you can really ask for from a
yeah.
rookie, no matter what. I think he'll give us lots of that. I'm really hoping he plays in summer league this year because I'm going to summer league. I would really like to see him in person. So.
Yeah, I think he's. I mean, obviously, if you're the best player in the draft, you're going to be dealt with a terrible situation probably, 9 times out of 10. So, um, for me personally, I expect him to be rookie of the year. I think that's a given. If he plays the amount of games that I know the NBA, we're going to get into the CBA, where there's a cap on, you have to play 65 games or more to be eligible for a certain amount of, well, all of the awards. Um, I expect that, but I'm not going to lie. I really think he has a great chance of making an All-Star team for sure. Like, I would not be surprised if he's an All-Star year one, like at all. And I think it's in his ability. Like, I really do. I think he can. Doesn't really necessarily have to be a starter. I'm just saying an All-Star. I really think he has a chance of being an All-Star year one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty lofty expectations, but I can see it. It just depends on, once he gets on the floor, how things are clicking in San Antonio. If, you're talking about expectations, if you're talking about numbers, I would say I think I expect him to average close to 20 points, definitely a double-double, a few blocks a game. The efficiency is a question right now. He's shooting high 20s from three. I don't really know where his volume is going to be throughout the season. It depends on, how the Spurs are running the offense through him. But he definitely has that 3-point shot, which isn't something that we see from that size. But then the thing that really separates him to me is the dribbling ability, the tough shot making ability. We've never seen somebody who's 7'4", 7'5", put the ball on the floor like he does. He's able to get close to the ground like a two guard does. Which it kind of looks weird, with his body and with his length and with his arms. But he has a real quick handle. He's able to get by defenders. I want to see him continue to finish better off the dribble. A lot of times he kind of stops in that mid-range area and then either, decides to dish or pull up for a mid-range. If he can continue to just go through defenders, it's going to be pretty much impossible to stop him off the dribble. But he's just an all-around great prospect. There was a game, I'm sorry, there was a play in the game the other day when he was in the finals. I think it was game three where, he contested a shot, got the rebound. I think he took one dribble and dished out to an outlet, and then got the ball back. I think one or two dribbles in the open court, and then dished it off for a dunk. Like that's just something we've never seen from a guy his size. So I don't know. Like expectations are going to be lofty for year one. Anybody that we're saying is high best prospect since LeBron. We've had people say that he's going to be a top 15 player of all time before he even has been drafted. Before we even knew
The
like
expectations for him, it's insane.
yeah,
You
it is.
know, if you're saying he's the best, I listen to people saying, go so far and saying that if he's top 15 of all time, you know how many great all-time greats he's better than? Like that's a lot to put on him. And he's young and he seems to he did I watched an interview with him a couple days ago and he seems to I'm not saying he likes the attention. He seems to know who he is, and that's very rare for individuals his age to be in tune with himself because a lot of it can either it can get to your head or it can make you do things that you usually don't do. He seems it never wavers. He doesn't go right or left. He's who he is, and that's what he needs coming into this league.
Yeah, he seems very confident, very focused, very intentional with what he does. I think he's going to come in and just be an absolute star. We don't know how long it's going to take for him to reach his potential. Only 19 years old. He's still got a lot of growing to do on the court. Like I said,
Yeah.
the scoring, it's going to come and go in certain games. There will be games where he struggles to shoot, where people probably criticize him because he's settling for too much outside shots, whatever the case may be. That's going to happen. That's going to happen when you're a player that has that much attention that probably walks in day one and is. Do you guys think he leads the Spurs in shot attempts next year?
I think he does.
Oh man. I'm gonna go with no. I'm gonna say it'll be Keldon Johnson, but
Yeah.
I will just say that Victor Wembanyama once a game does something that makes me say what the fuck. Um yeah, you've talked about some of those moments, Chaz, steal the ball, contest a shot, get the rebound, take a dribble that covers like half the court, throw the outlet. Yeah, I'm just excited. I'm just excited to watch him next year in the Spurs uniform. I think Danny, you mentioned like 9 times out of 10, you're picked number one, you're gonna go into an awful situation. I really feel like this is kind of that one time that it's not an awful situation. The Spurs have scoring, they've got some perimeter defense. I don't expect them to be competing for a playoff spot or anything like that. But
Mhm.
like this shouldn't be an awful team next year. So, it should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So we damn near know everybody know in the world that he's going number one. I think the draft really starts at number two. There's been so many mixed reports about Scoot Henderson. And Chaz, I want you to give me the profile of Scoot. What are you seeing? What don't you like? What do you think he's going? Like, what can he bring to an NBA team?
I mean, you talk about an ultra athlete. That's definitely him. He's got the speed. He's got the aggression. He's got the jumping ability. People compare him to guys like Russell Westbrook, John Morant. In terms of athleticism, I think he's bigger than both of them at this age. Um, he was, around the 6'2" range for the last couple of years. I think he measured in at 6'4". So he definitely has the size as a lead guard, I think, to be your starting point guard. This is a guy that also, even though he has the athleticism, he doesn't really rely on it. He is a good decision maker. He can pick you apart in the pick and roll. Obviously, there's still improvements that he needs to make, but I think this is a guy that projects as definitely an all-star level player and potentially beyond that. If I had the number 2 pick, I know people are a little bit worried about the fit with him alongside LaMelo. If he does go to Charlotte at number 2, I wouldn't be worried about that. It does sound like Brandon Miller is going to be the pick at number 2. At least that's what I've been hearing, reading. Whoa, just what he said. I don't know. I think if I had to pick, I would probably lean towards Scoot though.
Yeah, over the last couple of days, we've been hearing a lot out of Portland that he hasn't really been impressive in his workouts. Scoot hasn't. I think he did one recently in which they was impressed by it, but I still think Portland's teetering. I think a lot of that we're going to get into it a little later. Dame doesn't want to rebuild. You know, he's been on record and say he doesn't want to start. He doesn't want to start over again. And so the Dame situation, it's quite fascinating because from the front office standpoint, you're like, okay, we want to draft this young stud, but our superstar isn't happy. Can we package it? Can we package this pick and try to get a star to Portland? But will that star stay? Like, will it be enough to make Dame happy? What star is out there that we can bring to Portland that will satisfy Dame? And will Dame leave if we draft Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller? Like, so I think there's a lot of dynamics in this that we will dive into. And I think it's going to be very interesting and very fascinating to see where they go with that pick. Do they even draft either one of these players? It's going to be interesting to see.
I'm not even gonna hold you. If this was up to me, we wouldn't be like it wouldn't be about like who do we pair to for Dame in this rebuild, or do we trade this pick away for Dame in this rebuild?
What do you do if you're the front office?
Dame would be the rebuild. We would trade Damian Lillard. It's nothing against him or what he's done. It just clearly isn't working. And it would be the KG in Minnesota situation where we would be like, bro, I have so much respect for you and what you've done. Like, let's work together on this. But like, it's just time.
I almost feel like Dame wanted cake, his cake and eat it too. Because at one point he wants to stay, but he wants to win a title, but he doesn't want to go to a championship team because he feel like he'd get vilified for it. But he's been on record saying, I'm loyal. He's been on record being anti Big Three or anti like great players teaming up with each other. So how does it look if he's going to a great team? I just think I think he knows what he wants. He's afraid of the backlash. I'm like, dude, you're going to get the backlash. If you go to a great team, you pair it with great players, you're going to get the backlash. You just have to understand that. That's part of the game. That's part of the sport. You know the media is going to talk.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chas. Tag in here. I just feel like it's time. Personally, if this is me, I don't have to think twice about it. At 2, I'm taking Scoot Henderson. Oh my God.
Okay.
So Scoot Henderson, I see a little De'Aaron Fox in there,
Okay.
and I see everyone might think this is hot takey. I really don't care. I'm surrounded by fire. A better version of young Derrick Rose as a prospect. I don't understand how we're to me personally, I don't think this should be too much of a debate. And this is coming from somebody who very much likes Brandon Miller as a prospect. I see a lot of good with Brandon Miller. Personally, he reminds me of Chris Middleton a ton. A movement shooter, 2-level scorer. I think the thing that kind of just hurts you with Brandon Miller is that he's just not, at this point, a super explosive athlete. And he's also not somebody who is a good finisher, a particularly good finisher at the rim, but there's a lot to like with him. And, with Scoot Henderson, I think a lot of people will talk about the jump shot. I think that would be ignoring the fact that, one, he's a very good mid-range jump shooter already, that his percentages have consistently gone up over the course of the last few years, and also that he's got, a solid stroke and solid free throw percentages. There's a lot of shooting potential there to think that he'll kind of get there. And like you said, the athleticism, the explosiveness is crazy. I also, one, don't understand the complaints about his fit in Charlotte, because like we've seen, like, looking back at the champions, like you don't have just one guy who can handle the ball and create. You need more than one of those guys. I don't really understand where the complaint about the fit would be there. And 2, Charlotte hasn't won 45 games since 2015. What the fuck are we talking about, drafting for fit? Y'all haven't been good in a decade. You need talent. Fit is not your problem.
Yeah. So, Chas, I think we're all kind of in agreement that Scoot should be number 2. There's some waivers and you never know what happens, in the NBA. But he'll be going to Charlotte for sure if he's number 2. Chaz, give me the profile on Brandon Miller.
Yeah, I do think Scoot should go number 2, but I don't think he will. I do think it's
Brandon Miller's go to.
Yeah, it sounds like they brought both guys back for a workout on Monday after Scoot kind of outperformed Miller in their first workout. Sounds like Miller was a lot better in the second one. I guess he was a little bit under the weather first time around. They both, I think, went out with Michael Jordan, who, even though he is selling the team, I think he is going to still be involved with this pick before he, officially lets go of his majority stake in the Hornets. But yeah, I think it's going to end up being Brandon Miller. We could see Scoot end up going number 2, but reports indicate that it will be Miller at this point. And Tunde, like you said, I'm very high on Miller as well. I do prefer Scoot just a tad, but that's not to knock Miller. I think he's a very good player. He's arguably the best pure shooter in this draft, especially out of these top tier contenders. I think you could start to put somebody like Grady Dick or Jordan Hawkins in that conversation, but they're closer to the end of the lottery than Brandon Miller, who's obviously going to be a top 3 pick. This is a guy that he does project as a pretty high level wing scorer. I think he has all the intangibles to be a very high level scorer. I just think he needs to work on the rest of his game, which I think will come. We saw highlights of it during his freshman season at Alabama, where he would show progression as a defender, or he would show, one game where he looked like he was improving at scoring at the rim, and then he might dip down for a few games in a row. So I think he just needs to work on consistency, work on his handle a little bit more, finishing at the rim, some of the stuff that Tunde talked about. But I do think this is a guy that could be an all-star in, probably in his mid-20s. So we're still a little bit a ways from that. But I do think this is a guy that deserves to be in the top 3.
Yeah, very Brandon Miller as well, but I agree with you, Chess.
Yeah, Tony, give me your take on Brandon Miller.
Oh, yeah. I mean, love his game. There's ball handling. There's some fluidity there. He shoots the hell out of the ball, both stationary, on the move, off the dribble. He's got a little bit of a low release, but he's 6'10", so that's probably fine. He really shoots the ball at a high level. He competes like mad, and you have to love that about him. I think at this point right now, he's a really, really good 2-level scorer. He's not a particularly good finisher at the rim, which is partially due to a lack of burst and athleticism, and a vertical, and then partially due to a lack of strength. So I mean, how much he fills out physically and what he can add in those areas is probably what determines his overall ceiling. As it is right now, I see a lot of parallels to Chris Middleton. And I mean, I think most teams would be very happy to draft Chris Middleton at like 3rd overall. So
outside, and I'm want to get you guys' a pre-draft of your top 6. So I will save the question that I have next as a follow-up. So Chaz, if you were doing your own Chaz mock draft, what would the order be?
Yeah, obviously Wembanyama is going number 1, Scoot Henderson 2. I lean towards Brandon Miller 3, Amen Thompson 4, and then I think it gets absolutely wide open after that. I could see his twin brother Asur Thompson going 5 to the Pistons, but I also think Cam Whitmore's in the discussion, Jarris Walker, Anthony Black. I think there's a handful of guys. I'm probably missing somebody. Taylor Hendricks as well. I think there's a ton of guys between that 5 and 10 where it could go in any order. I'd like to get your guys' take. Do you think Amen Thompson is solidified at 4? It sounds like he had a great workout with the Rockets, and that's what they're leaning towards taking. And then if they do, who do you think the Pistons take at 5?
So, I mean, I think the I think the Rockets should take him, even if they weren't planning on it. He's the perfect player for their roster. They need somebody who doesn't want to shoot the ball 25 times again. Before we talk about anything else. I think as a Pistons fan, I'm very excited about this draft and about the Pistons. It'd be very hard for them to make just a bad decision at 5. There's so many players who would help this roster. Personally, I think I lean towards Cam Whitmore, another guy who I really like. Just to give a quick player comp, I see kind of a mix of Miles Bridges on the court and Andrew Wiggins like plus. I think the issues with him will come from and kind of like where the questions will be is like where can he get his handle for from a shot creation perspective, and then just some level of playmaking, because it's not something he did at all at Villanova. But on the Pistons roster, he doesn't really have to do too much of either one of those things. So
Tony, let me get your top 5 mock draft.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't even, can I just start it too? Like there's no, we know who and what one is. We all think the same thing. Wemby at 1. I'm going Scoot at 2. You already heard me say that. Portland, I guess I have to make a pick, right? So Brandon Miller, although I would trade that fucking pick. Houston, I would go with Amen Thompson. And at 5, I would go Cam Whitmore. But we'll see what happens. It could be Jarris Walker. It could be Asar Thompson. Taylor Hendricks wouldn't surprise me. Even like Bilal Coulibaly wouldn't surprise me.
Gotcha. All right, so I got some rapid fire NBA draft edition for you guys. Out of the pool of players, Wemby aside, everything is Wemby aside.
Yeah,
Okay? Everything is Wemby aside.
he
Who
doesn't.
has the greatest upside in his NBA draft?
I would go with Scoot Henderson, but I think Amen Thompson is right there as well.
I would probably echo those. Oh boy, I got to pick one.
One.
That's not fair. Oh, buddy. All right. I mean, so I echo Chaz's sentiments on Scoot Henderson. For the sake of picking somebody else, I picked Brandon Miller. But that's because, like, if Brandon Miller hits and develops everything, we're probably talking about a slightly better version of Paul George.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Honorable mentions to Amen Thompson, who, like, if it all works, it could be like a Andre Iguodala, like Scottie Pippen, Penny Hardaway mashup, which is an insane basketball player.
Who's the
I think.
dark horse?
Oh, sorry. I just want to say on Amen Thompson real quick. I mean, I think the fact that he's going to slip to 4 will not happen in most drafts. And
No,
also, if he wasn't playing in overtime elite and he was in something that the average viewer saw more often, he might be 2 or 3 in this draft.
You think because his draft is so loaded?
Yeah, that and I just think the fact that he has been playing in a, kind of different sort of league for the last couple of years that people don't have their eyes on him as much, and the people that do also question the competition level of that league, and I get that. But both twin brothers, have absolutely shown the potential, I think, in that league, even if the competition isn't what other leagues may be. But I mean, you're talking about a guy that's 6'6", 7 foot wingspan, is probably going to walk in and be one of the best athletes in the entire league. And I'm in Thompson. And then you add in the fact that he has become a pretty polished ball handler, great passer. I think he has the potential to be an all-star for sure.
Gotcha. Oh, that was my next question, actually. Which player out of this draft has the chance to be a perennial all-star? Multiple all-stars, one person.
Tune, you got one? Because, man, I think there's a handful of guys.
I think there's a lot of people. I think there's people who will probably be taken in the 20s who could end up being like perennial all stars. I think there's a world in which G.G. Jackson ends up being a perennial all star. I'll go with Scoot Henderson. Uh, yeah.
I'll go with somebody a little more further down my draft board that we haven't mentioned yet, and I think that's Keontae George. I think he's probably going to fall between like 10 and 14, but he gave me a lot of glimpses of like Devin Booker when he was in college. Just a tough shot making, can make it from anywhere in that mid range area. He still needs to improve on pretty much every other aspect of his game. But when you have that tough shot making at this sort of age, I feel like it gives you that kind of leniency to work on the other things as you develop in the league. And he's just, 1 year at Baylor, so he's still young. I think Keontae George, if everything hits right, he could be one of those players. But yeah, like Tunde said, I think there's a handful of guys. I mean, Jarris Walker, I could see him turning into a guy that's, a 3 or 4 time All-Star because he's an elite defender. He can defend 1 through 5. So, it just depends. You kind of need everything to click right. And for most guys, it doesn't. And for other guys, it may. So they will reach that full potential. But yeah, I would say there's probably between 5 and 10 guys that I could see making an all-star multiple times.
All right, last
Absolutely.
one. Sunday, did you have something to say?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say absolutely. And situations matter, but I could even see somebody like Whitehead from Duke if his foot is fine being an all-star. Go ahead, Danny. Sorry.
I mean,
Gotcha.
I will say real quick that Dariq Whitehead, there was 3 guys that were #1 player in that class of 2022 with Dariq Whitehead, Derek Lively, and Nick Smith Jr. I don't think any of those guys are going to go between maybe Derek Lively will sneak into the lottery, but I think the other guys are probably just outside that lottery. So you're going to see somebody, or you're going to see 3 different teams get a guy that was one of the best players in their class. Didn't have smooth freshman seasons at all, but if they can come into a pretty good organization, like you probably will if you are getting drafted in between that 15 to 25 range, I could see them being an impact as a rookie.
You can
All
see
right.
how excited we are about this class because we won't shut up, even though Danny keeps trying to move
most
it.
most under. I'm trying to keep him in control, y'all. I'm trying to move it along here.
He's good.
Underrated player. Who was the most underrated player in this draft? when it's all said and done.
Luna, you got one?
When you look at that list, who was the most underrated? Who are we not talking about?
I truly like. I don't understand. I guess I'll give you two. I won't go on too long here. I don't understand how Leonard Miller is gonna fall potentially to like the end of the first round. I really don't get that. Uh, damn near averaged like 20 and 10 in the G League. And there's a ready-made NBA player who will be a super high-end role player, I think. I don't really get that. Bryce Sensabaugh, I know he's probably not for everybody, maybe the lack of playmaking and a little bit of a chucker, but like the efficiency and the scoring versatility, and he's like a 19-year-old with an NBA body already. I don't get that one either.
Chas, who is the most underrated player that's not on this list? Who are we forgetting?
Yeah, one of my favorite players in this draft class is Cason Wallace, point guard out of Kentucky. I think he's probably at least in the conversation to be the best perimeter defender. Also, a great decision maker. He can play either the point or the two guard position. So I think he's going to be a player that comes in and is an impact right away. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Is a good shooter off the dribble and off the catch. He reminds me a lot of Drew Holiday. So yeah, Cason Wallace is a guy that I think is probably going to be closer to the 10 range. But I think he could be a guy that comes in right away. And then I would also say Grady Dick, freshman out of Kansas. Sneaky athleticism, probably the second best pure shooter in this draft class. I think he's like 6'6", 6'7", so he can play pretty much the 2 through the 4. But I think both those guys are going to go between like 8 and 14. But I think they'll be good right away.
All right. All I have to say is the future is bright for the NBA. Coming up next, there's a new big three in Phoenix. Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns.